What's going on, everyone? Zodiac here with another tips, tricks, and tech video. Today we're going to be looking into why the wildly growing Valorant does not allow for ultra-wide use and if it may in the future. Before we get started though, I'd like to mention I do stream every Tuesday and Thursday over on Twitch, link down below in the description. Now, to get started, let's take a look at a very similar game such as CSGO. As you see here, you have full use of an entire ultra-wide screen. It has an extremely popular competitive scene, and while it doesn't allow the use of ultra-wide monitors there, it does allow them on the more casual side of the game. The main thing to remember here is that CSGO has had years to perfect their formula in what they do and don't allow, both in the casual and competitive side of the game. Why is it though that some games allow ultra-wide use and some don't? Let's go ahead and start on the easier side to explain. Many games allow ultra-wide use because their games simply aren't that competitive. I hear what you're saying though. CSGO allows them, Fortnite allows them, Apex Legends allows them, and the list goes on and on. While these games do have a competitive scene, they typically don't allow ultra-wide use in those competitions. In many of these games where they do allow ultra-wide use, it's at a skill level where it typically doesn't really make a huge difference. Give a huge advantage to one side or the other. Yes, you could say that no matter what, it gives an advantage, but what's the difference between an ultra-wide versus standard resolution and a 144 Hz or even a 240 Hz for that matter, compared to a 60 Hz monitor? In the end, with a PC, you can always run into someone who has some kind of advantage on you. With an ultra-wide, you also typically get disadvantages, such as slightly lower frame rates and all around lower max frames per second, with most mid to high-end ultra-wides sitting at around 100 to 120 Hz, so there is a little bit of give and take with any ultra-wide monitor. Now, as for why some games don't allow for ultra-wides, the answer varies quite a bit, but it almost always boils down to a couple of different reasons. The first of which is simply optimization. There are some games, such as Overwatch, where they just aren't optimized in a manner to make them viable. In Overwatch, it stretches the current horizontal field of view to fit the monitor, but crops the vertical field of view in the process. Although this is probably on purpose, it still gives an unoptimized feel, and many games do this by accident, and the audience just isn't there or isn't vocal enough for it to matter. As for the second reason is from a gameplay standpoint, it can make things difficult. For Valorant, the biggest change that would also be the hardest is that the cone that you see in front of people on the minimap is set to match your field of view. With a 90-degree field of view, or whatever the field of view in Valorant is, they always know what's going to be on your screen. Whereas if you were to bump it up to an ultra-wide monitor, that field of view increases. So then they have two different choices. Either A would be to leave the field of view on the minimap the same across any monitor, making it inaccurate at that point, but much easier to deal with. Or B, to expand the field of view cone, but only for players that have an ultra-wide. Neither of these two options are really likely to happen, especially because you won't know if that enemy will have that larger field of view, especially if everyone on your team has a standard resolution monitor, making it seem as if everyone's just going to have the same field of view. And at least until they have a major revamp for Valorant getting patched in, I don't see ultra-wides being likely to be supported anytime in the near future at least. However, there is still some hope for ultra-wide users. Keep in mind that this game is still in beta, meaning not all features may be in the game. I know we're used to just about all features being in a game during its beta. If you look at any Call of Duty recently, or Battlefield, or even Halo early access for the Master Chief Collection, typically just about every feature is going to be in that game. And as a video game community, that's what we've become used to. But betas haven't always been that way. A lot of betas in the past, and even some betas today, only are really there to support the devs and allow the devs to know what exactly they need to work on before the game is fully released, especially if it's a paid-for game. With Valorant, that's not as much of an issue, but Valorant has a lot that it needs to be able to do in order to really blow up if they're going to try to compete with games such as CSGO, Rainbow Six Siege, Overwatch, anything like that that's going to be in the competitive field. They really need to work on a lot of things and get a lot of the kinks worked out of the system, as well as make sure the game itself is more reliable. So what this means is that they could be planning to allow ultra-wides in the full release of the game, but are holding off on it as of right now to get the kinks worked out of the system and make the game itself more reliable, choosing to focus on the necessary aspects of the game and holding off for now on the other slightly less important aspects of Valorant. Although ultra-wides are an integral part of video games as a whole, especially nowadays, they unfortunately aren't the most important thing in video games, not first-person shooters especially. So while they may eventually add this, they're probably just focusing on making the game as stable as can be, as well as things like weapons and more commonly used features being in the forefront of optimization. Personally, I don't see ultra-wides coming. Even with all of this being said, I don't see it happening. I know I use ultra-wides on just about every game that allows it, especially anything such as The Witcher, for example. That's my favorite modern game that has that ultra-wide aspect. It's a beautiful game. And then if you go to something like Call of Duty Warzone or Modern Warfare Multiplayer, I absolutely love the ultra-wide field of view. I know most of my videos don't have that ultra-wide field of view, but it's something that adds a whole new level to the game. So I would love to see an ultra-wide aspect added to the game at some point, but as of right now, I don't see it happening, unfortunately. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys think ultra-wides are going to be coming to Valorant, and if so, I'd love to know why. If there is a certain side to the game that you think would suit an ultra-wide. I know it is a very competitive game, but again, like we talked about earlier, games such as CSGO entirely allow the full ultra-wide use. So it is still possible that they may continue to take cues from a game like CSGO, but all we got to do right now is we just got to wait. So I can't wait to see how they develop this game, and I think it does have a lot of potential if Riot can play their cards right. And that about wraps everything up for my opinions on this subject. So if you guys enjoyed the video, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.